If you want to get better at reading your Bible, you got to realize chiasms are all over the place, which is why I'm going to show you an Old Testament chiasm in this video. On top of that, I'm going to give you 3 points of application, or 3 different ways that seeing a chiasm can help you meditate on the Bible more deeply. If you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Tim. I'm a Bible teacher at my church, and I fell in love with the Bible when I realized that it is a literary masterpiece, which is why I introduce everyday Jesus followers like yourself to the literary makeup of the Bible. In this video, I'm going to show you an example of a chiasm in the life of Abraham. If you want to read the Bible better, including the story of Abraham, you got to know what a chiasm is and how it helps you as the reader meditate upon the text. So, here's the story of Abraham's life. As you can see, the structure creates a chiasm, meaning there's this pivotal moment right in the middle, and then on either side of this pivotal event, stories start to correspond to each other. So right in the middle, that's Genesis 17 verses 1 through 5. God changes Abraham's name. So he goes from Abram to Abraham. On either side of that event, God enters into a covenant with Abraham. On either side of those events, Abraham acts as a rescuer. On either side of those events, Abraham and Sarah are rescued. And then on either side of those events, Abraham goes on a spiritual journey or pilgrimage of sorts. So at the beginning of the story, he goes out of his country to another country. And then later on in the story, he travels to sacrifice his son Isaac before God calls it off. So that's the chiastic structure of Abraham's life. Of course, now this begs the question, so what? How do chiasms help us read the Bible better? So 3 reasons. Number 1, the story or the idea that's at the center is usually the focal point. So this is the author's way of creating an exclamation point or waving a flag saying this story is important. So for this chiasm in Abraham's life, right, Abraham's name change is the focal point of this story. So the reason why God changes Abram's name to Abraham is to convey the idea that he will be the father of a multitude of nations. So the centrality of this passage actually causes us to focus on God's mission and how the entire Old Testament storyline links us back to this central moment, right? God is going to accomplish his purposes through Abraham's family line. This story matters. Second, by structuring their stories chiastically, the biblical authors are inviting us to reflect upon the passages that correspond to each other. So for this example, Abraham is rescued on 2 different occasions. So if you were to put these stories side by side, what would we learn? Right? Whether you're in a Bible study, whether you're reading the Bible on your own, whether you're preaching from one of these texts, right? This is a great way to draw out application. What are the similarities? What are the differences? And so on. Now, if you're a pastor, this doesn't mean that you have to preach 2 texts simultaneously, right? You can focus on the passage that you're reading, but you might have a moment where you draw attention to the other story and just let people know that this is happening. And then show people those similarities and show people those differences. And then from there, you can draw out application for your congregation. Again, it's also a helpful way to introduce your congregation to these literary features in the Bible. All right, third, chiasms can help you avoid misinterpreting the passage, right? It's not going to guarantee it, but it can help. So for example, a lot of people squirm at the idea that God is asking Abraham to kill his son Isaac. I don't blame people for squirming at that. But when you recognize this story actually shares similar themes to the earlier story about God calling Abram to go from one land to another, you can discern what the author is and is not communicating. In this case, God is not bloodthirsty. He doesn't love child sacrifice. I mean, when you read Genesis 22, you also gather that this is not what's happening, but it also helps that you can compare and contrast it with that earlier story as well. Again, it's through the similarities, it's through the differences, it's through this form, this literary structure, that the author is communicating meaning in the text. And so again, this will help you avoid misinterpreting the passage. And if you run into someone in your small group who struggles with a passage like this, again, this provides you with a loving way to critique or to correct their misunderstandings about the passage. So there you have it. Chiasms are important. I hope this helps you approach Bible reading with greater awareness. And with that, we are going to see you guys in the next video.